to Faith on Film, a program designed to keep you informed on everything that's happening in the world of faith-based films. Now, having said that, today's program is going to be a little different. In fact, I have a return guest. This is my first time I have a guest on for a second program. And you know what? We're not even going to talk about movies. The reason I have her here, you'll find out when we start talking. But Sam Sorbo she holds many titles, including filmmaker, radio host, actress, international model, author, wife, mother, and home education advocate. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Sam, welcome back to Faith on Film.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been several months now, but to be honest with you, my daughter, when we started with this whole pandemic thing, my daughter came to me after a while and she said, she follows you and she goes, "Dad, you got to have Sam back on. She's doing a lot in the area of homeschooling, which is very important right now, And I thought, well, my program is about films. And then like another week later, I get a email from, I don't know if it's a publicist of yours or what, but he just was really pushing you on this home education thing. So I took that as a confirmation that, you know what, I probably need to do this and talk to Sam about it, because all this just might correlate to each other anyway. Now, I know that you and Kevin are very involved in really, I think, pretty much all the mountains of influence. But more specifically, ones that I caught would be, of course, politics. You guys really are very vocal about politics, education, and entertainment. Is there something that you feel kind of ties all that together? Why are you so passionate about all these?
Yeah, well, okay, so I did a radio show for many years, a daily radio show, 3 hours a day, so it was a lot. And it focused on politics and religion. And I would say religion because that's who you are and where you're going. Mm-hmm. And politics is how you get there. And we've been we've been schooled to think that politics and religion should be bifurcated. They should be separated. But the fact is you cannot separate them, because if you have a politician who says, I make policy decisions not based on my religion, which is your worldview, okay, then that's a hypocrite. How can you make policy decisions that aren't informed by what you believe about the world in general?
Yes.
And so I did that radio show for quite a long time. The way that I tie education into it is that everything that we do and think begins and ends with our education. And so you can't make any decision without consulting your knowledge base. Mm-hmm. And along with consulting your knowledge base, you consult the things that you learned and how you learned to think. And then I'll go one step further. You didn't ask this, but how we learn to think, we are seeing the ramifications of today in the idea that we are no longer asking any questions because we've been schooled, but we haven't been educated. And the way we've been schooled is to not ask questions. We've been taught not to ask questions, or rather to ask no questions. And that's why we find ourselves in this state right now with COVID-19, and we're seeing reports now that it's really no worse than the flu, and that potentially we've absolutely wrecked our economy for no gain, like very little gain, if it in turn turns out to be slightly worse than the flu. And we did it on the pretext of the lack of knowledge that we had, not even on the pretext of having knowledge, but the fact that we didn't have knowledge. We were going to do all of this stuff just in case. And you have people, I'm struggling today because I'm dealing with a level of anger that I'm unaccustomed to. Mm-hmm. Okay, typically I'm not an angry at all, and so I'm very frustrated today with myself. But I'm seeing these reports of people who have died because of what we did to somehow curtail this false threat. People didn't go to the hospital for a heart attack because they thought that the hospitals were overwhelmed and they didn't want to be an imposition. And so they died quietly at home with the pain that's going down their arm.
And I've heard they're not, by the way. I've heard the hospitals are really not that overwhelmed.
No, we have less than 1,000 deaths in the state of Florida, less than 1,000 deaths in the state of California that has 40 million people. And we are now past the point where they said the peak would be. So what the heck? And we accepted all of this without a peep, without a question. And you know whose job is it to question? It's the media's job to question. And they questioned nothing. They questioned nothing. They just accepted whatever was sent down. And so I want people to wake up, to understand that your children will be worse off than you are because you're the idiots who didn't question. And the children are being schooled in the same system that's worse now than when you went to school. And so parents say to me, oh, I could never homeschool my child. I just don't know how to teach a third grader. And I walk them through, okay, so you graduated high school and you feel incapable of teaching a third grader or a fourth grader or, okay, a fifth grade, like you feel incapable. We're just establishing that. Yes, I do. I can't. I just don't even know where to begin. Okay. First of all, if you think that you can't teach a fifth grader, that means that you've been schooled but not educated. Because the mark of an education is the ability to impart your information to somebody, the ability to teach it, really. And the fact that you don't know that is actually evidence that you've been schooled and not educated. But let's take this one step further. So you feel incompetent and you're satisfied to send your child into a system that turned out the likes of you and made you feel incompetent. Because the reason that you feel incompetent is because you think that education means that you have to have a teacher who teaches you, stands at the board, a whiteboard or a blackboard, to educate you. And that's wrong. And the proof is this. Have you ever done anything for which you weren't formally educated? Have you ever leased a car? Have you ever bought a house? Have you ever filled your gas tank? Did somebody walk you through and teach you that? And if they did, were they accredited? No, they were not. You simply asked somebody, hey, can you show me how to fill my gas tank? Because I've never done this before. And they did. And then you learned it. And boom, are you capable of teaching somebody that? Absolutely. But you feel incompetent.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break right now. And then when we come back, let's talk about the myths that you dispelled in one of your blogs. There were 6 myths that you've dispelled, and we're going to talk about those right now and just get it out there once and for all right?
Happy to.
Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Got a postcard from the grandkids. They went to the Ark.
Yeah. What does it say?
Well, Annie says they had a blast and that it's really, really big.
Everything looks big to a 6-year-old.
Well, Hudson says it's even bigger than the castle.
Can't be that big. Can it? Go ahead. Think bigger.
Encourage TV. Family-friendly and faith-friendly content absolutely free. Subscribe today and watch hundreds of hours of content on our streaming channels. Visit encouragetv.com today.
Welcome back to Faith on Film, or in this case, maybe I should change the name to Faith on Education. Sam, so you wrote a blog some time ago here entitled Homeschool Myths Dispelled. There was 6 myths that you dispelled. The first one we've already talked about, that parents don't have the qualification, and you've pretty much blown that one out of the water. The other one is that the kids don't really get a real education. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, well, they don't get a real schooling like they get in school. They don't become automatons, and just do exactly as their schoolmaster. So I'll bring this up because we might as well go through it, right?
Sure.
So the first quote in my book, this is my book, they're your kids.
Mm-hmm.
The first quote in my book reads this, and this is Fichte, who was the head of philosophy and psychology at Prussian University, which is what influenced our entire public school movement, okay? He said this: education should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. So when you feel like, oh, I shouldn't do something, is it you that feels that way, or is it you monitoring yourself as your schoolmaster would? I'm just saying. So the education that children get is, okay, the reason that you feel incompetent is because you've been taught that you're incompetent. The fact is that alone makes you it gives you a fantastic opportunity to home educate, because the reason that you educate your child, the thing that you want your child to learn is not stuff. You want your child to learn how to learn, okay? Mm-hmm. What better way for your child to learn how to learn than for you to model learning for your child? So you say to the child, I have no idea how to teach you math, but I'm going to figure it out because I love you and you need to learn math. And so let's sit down and see if we can figure this out together. Oh, look at that. The book actually tells me how to show you how to do the math. In fact, it tells you how to do the math, but I'll go through it with you. And then pretty soon you'll be able to just read the book and teach yourself how to do math. Oh my goodness. You're setting the child free to pursue all of his interests in any way that he wants, in the sense that he understands how to learn. And that's the goal of the education, really. And so the idea that homeschooled kids don't really get an education is absurd. In fact, recently, a professor at Harvard decided that it was clever for her to call on a ban on homeschooling, and she's a Harvard professor, okay? She wants to ban homeschooling during a lockdown where it's actually federally mandated, basically, that you have to homeschool. Like, this is how clever the professors at Harvard are these days. Mind you, there have been 3 responses to that, each one written by a Harvard graduate who is a homeschool graduate. And each of the homeschool graduates graduated Harvard at the top of their class, because Harvard recruits homeschoolers. So there's a fear that's out amongst the leftists, I'll just say, and the school proponents and the union proponents, that is fearful of the homeschool movement. And the reason is because homeschooling is much more effective at instilling a love of liberty and a love of learning in children. And so that's a very important distinction.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got to take another break, and then when we come back, we'll follow up with another one. I'm not going to go through these 6 because obviously one alone just really grabs your passion. The next one I want to talk about, though, is from a social perspective. Now, one of the myths is that they won't be able to function in the real world. So I want you to talk about that in the next segment, all right?
Okay.
Folks, don't go away. We're going to be right back.
Just one life, a perfect union. And your heart starts beating hard. I'm gonna keep on dreaming. I wanna feel that love. I wanna get that feeling. I wanna get that feeling.
they say it's really big.
What's really big?
Ozark, silly.
Oh, I know. It's bigger than the size of our house.
It's a little bigger than that.
Like the size of 2 houses. No, 2 houses and a spaceship. I bet it's even bigger than the castle.
Don't be ridiculous. That's impossible.
This summer, think bigger.
Meet Will. Will wants to make a movie based in Bible times. No, maybe a Western. Well, maybe an apocalyptic movie. A biblical era apocalyptic Western? That would be so original. But Will needs some sweet sets to bring it to life, and Will is 25,352 miles away from any of those sweet, sweet sets. Or so he thinks. Fortunately for Will, there is a solution. Introducing Capernaum Studios, your ticket to realistic locations and everything else you need to bring your period-accurate story to life. Book a tour today, like Will, who is, yet to leave.
Welcome back to Faith on Film, or again, as I said on the previous segment, Faith on Education.
Education on film.
Yes, well, well, interestingly enough, films and television shows have been educating our kids quite a bit as well, and they're doing a terrible job. So anyway, one of the other areas or the other myths that you dispelled in your blog was that the kids can't then function in a real world because I guess they feel they're stuck at home or something. How would you address that?
All right. Before I get into that, I want to refer people to samsorbo.com because I post a video every day. I've been doing it since the beginning of the COVID outbreak. I'm also doing some live Facebook events as well. Okay. So you can go to my official Facebook page. So you want to talk about socialization. So here's my answer for people who ask this question, because that is the number 2 question. The number 1 question is, I can't because I don't know how. And the number 2 is, well, what about socialization? Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you mean by socialization? Examine that, because really that's just sort of a catch-all word. Like, well, what about socialization? They won't be able to talk to people. Says who? Why? And what makes you think that going to school and sitting in a classroom all day with 30 kids their same age somehow equips them to talk to people? Like, what are you hoping for? Because I have a feeling that you're hoping that your child is the popular child, but your child might not be the popular child. Your child might be the bullied child. Mm-hmm. Your child might be the bully. There's all bets are off. So you need to understand that there are no guarantees there. And then there are different types of children. Some children really aren't going to thrive in that environment. So the idea, I socialize my dog, okay? I socialize my dog at the dog park so my dog learns don't go running after other dogs or other people or biting people, right? Mm-hmm. I don't socialize my children. I do social events with my children. And as a homeschooler, just because it's called homeschooling does not mean it happens in the home. In fact, it happens outside the home probably as much as it happens in the home.
Yes.
If you do homework with your child after school, you're homeschooling them. But that's not home education. That's doing school at the end of the day when everybody's tired and cranky and hungry. And good luck with that. I'm just saying you can choose education for your child and get a bunch of social benefits. So I have my oldest child is a social butterfly. He knows when he was in public school in 1st grade, all the 5th graders knew his name because he talked to everybody. There's nothing that holds him back socially. Okay. I brought him home. He continued to make all of his own play dates in 2nd grade, all of his own play dates, such that the parents would drive up to the house and then they'd get out of the car and they'd see me and they'd be like, oh, I just realized we didn't actually talk. Did your son tell you that we were coming? that kind of thing, okay? And then I have an introvert. And my introvert doesn't even want to go to our co-op one day a week with other kids in it because she's introverted and she can't stand to be around a whole bunch of people. And there are only 12 kids in that class. 11. There are only 11 kids in that class. But so I had there's a video on my website called Introverts. And there was a gal who wrote in after I did an interview, and she said, my daughter's introverted, so I just feel like I'm doing the right thing by sending her to school every day. But I'm homeschooling my other children. And I said, okay, why are we talking about socialization? I thought the subject was education. If you make a decision based on education, then the decision would be to homeschool. So why are you bringing out something else? If you have cancer, then the treatment is radiation. So why would you bring in, I don't know, a cure for your foot problem? Why would you bring in a wart medicine to treat the cancer? Do you see what I'm saying? Like socialization, it's a chimera. It's just it's a red herring.
Well, what about this one? Because this is one that I hear a lot as well, and that is it really just a bunch of religious fanatics brainwashing their children?
Yes, absolutely. That's all it is. because we're nothing if we can't just generalize and then vilify people with a label. That's a thinking person. Think about that. Mm-hmm. Think about the generalization. Homeschoolers score 15 to 30 percentile points better than public school children on academic achievement tests. Homeschoolers, and specifically Black homeschoolers, score even better compared to their their compatriots, their peers. Okay, but shh, don't tell anybody, because the bureaucracy that is our education system right now gets offended when we point out their failings. And they're failing. We are now 27th in the world on scholastic achievement. We spend more than almost every other country in the world per student. And we come in at 27th. We're the United States of America. I'm sorry, that is not acceptable to me. If you have a plumber who comes to your house and does 73% of the job, do you ever hire him back? No. And yet we are graduating young people from high school, from public school, who can't read, who can't do math. And we keep sending them money, and they say, well, we need more money. Well, money doesn't buy you thinking. Money buys you schooling. And we've been schooled.
Wow.
So I want to tell people, samsorbo.com.
Yes.
Coronavirushomeschooling.com is a website that I've been promoting. Coronavirushomeschooling.com, where people can go, parents can go and get free K through 12 lesson plans. It's the soup to nuts. It's the whole deal. We will show you how to go about the start of educating your children. Excuse me. And it's completely free. I like to say it's soup to nuts. All you add is the love. That's coronavirushomeschooling.com. My website is samsorbo.com. I also have a YouTube channel. If you'll go there and subscribe, that would be awesome, because I'm really trying to get this message out.
Great.
Because we can turn this country around, and Christians particularly. No, it's not just a bunch of fanatics, but I'll tell you, it's a lot of like-minded people, and that's awesome. And right now, if you're Christian and you're sending your child into the public schools, they are teaching your child anti-Christian beliefs.
Wow. Well, we've run out of time. I don't know. You've completely changed the feel and face of this program today. But you know what? It was nice to get out of that box. I've been in that box for so many shows now, and this was nice. There was something different. Folks, write me and let me know what you think of this. And of course, follow Sam on all those websites that she mentioned today. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. All right.
Thanks so much.
Folks,
great to see you again.
Great. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Encourage TV. Family-friendly and faith-friendly content absolutely free. Subscribe today and watch hundreds of hours of content on our streaming channels. Visit encouragetv.com today.
Where, madam, do you get your facts?
Tis in your journal, sir. Tis all in your journal.
Some would have you to believe today that all of this is the work of chance and not that of divine providence.
Good morning, Major Washington. His Lordship said that you are to insist that the governor send you with a letter addressing Mr. Christopher Gist.
They butchered him in front of his wife and children so that no provincial nor Indian not loyal to the French would dare venture to go where you and the governor would have us go.
Many in the House believe your trip to the French Commandant to be theatrics, to induce public sentiment both here and abroad for war.
How, George, do you respond to this indictment that some would say to be unreasonable reasoning in the age of reason?
Sir. Be the very consequence if the boy dies in the wilderness.
He led us into Ottawa territory. That Indian will find his brothers and they will hunt us down.
You eat and you think like a boy.
What is your name, madam?
To you, my dear boy, I am simply Sally.
Say your goodbyes, Major.
Today, Mr. Gist, we are not only emissaries of the crown, but ambassadors of the divine. We shall cross, and without delay.
Welcome back to Faith on Film. I really hope you enjoyed today's program, even though it was a little different than normal. But with what's happening with this pandemic, I just thought it was an important conversation to have, and who better to have it with than Sam Sorbo. Now, we got so involved in the conversation, though, that I forgot to mention her new book, True Faith. In this book, Kevin and Sam show that if you keep your feet moving and your hearts focused on God's divine rhythm, you can discover successes you might never imagined. All it takes is a little faith. Now, to find out how you can get that book, simply go to samsorbo.com. That's samsorbo.com. Now, what better thing to do during the pandemic than to watch some good Christian movies? Now, where can you do that at? Well, Parables, of course. In Parables, you can watch some wonderful Christian movies, documentaries, reality shows, all kinds of great content for you and your family. And it's free, no subscription fee. Simply go to parables.tv and subscribe. That's parables.tv. Of course, I also want to remind you to write me. I'd like to hear from you. Simply write me at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Till next week, take care.